Turning to a story that is making headlines around the world, an unprecedented, albeit controversial, new discovery is shedding light on a mystery that dates back millennia, many millennia.
This first human was called Adamu, which sounds very similar to the Hebrew word Adam. This suggests that humans were originally created to work. Even the Sumerian word for worship, avod, means to work. Sumerian society also demonstrated this. Their temples were not just places of worship, but also places where things were gathered, stored, and distributed according to need. The temples in cities like Ur, Uruk, and Eridu were central to the social and economic structure of the time. Now, scholars disagree over the interpretation of these accounts. Well-known historians like Samuel Noah Kramer and Thorkild Jacobsen believe these are symbolic stories created to explain natural forces and the structure of society. Researchers like Zechariah Sitchin, Michael Tellinger, and Mauro Biglino argue that if places, people, tools, and actions are described in such detail, they may not be mere fantasies, but memories of real events that have become myths over time. So the question is, did the Sumerian civilization record in their texts some vague glimpse of a past that we have forgotten today? Maybe. And perhaps in the future, we will find the answer. But the story is not over yet. There is much more to the tale of the Anunnaki. The interbreeding and the Nephilim. When we look at the earliest civilizations of Mesopotamia, we find evidence that goes beyond just stories of temples, kings, and wars. Populations were growing rapidly, cities were expanding, and social classes were forming. Excavations at sites such as Ur, Uruk, and Nippur, particularly between 3000 and 2000 BCE, show that large-scale manufacturing, trade, and administrative systems were in place. Amid these changes, stories emerged that suggested relationships between humans and gods were not limited to labor or worship. According to some texts, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Book of Giants, some of the higher-ranking Anunnaki gods had sexual relations with human women. The offspring of these relationships were called Nephilim, a word that means fallen or fallen in Hebrew. These Nephilim were described as physically powerful and long-lived. The Bible refers to them as the mighty warriors of old. Their dual identity, half god and half human, made them mysterious and unsettling. However, this was not unanimously accepted within Anunnaki society. Enlil, who was considered the chief god, worried that this mingling of gods and humans could someday upset the balance. On the other hand, Enki, who played a key role in the creation of humans, saw the process as necessary. Old records, such as the Sumerian king list, mention rulers who were said to live thousands of years. For example, Alulim, king of Eridu, reported to have ruled for 28,800 years. Some experts believe these figures may not be merely symbolic, but may be reminders of long-lived creatures like the Nephilim. Many scholars view these ancient tales as symbolic. They link the expulsion from paradise to environmental changes or social conflicts. On the other hand, some researchers believe that these stories may not be mere fiction, but a real glimpse of a forgotten era. There is clear evidence of large-scale floods and cultural changes in ancient Mesopotamia about 4,900 years ago, i.e., around 2,900 BC. Signs of sudden destruction in the soil layers found in excavations and incidents of sudden disappearance of old civilizations point to some major natural disaster. There is mention of flood warnings in the Sumerian and Akkadi scripts of that time, in which things like celestial movements, such as unusual changes in the rays of the sun, more sunspots, and magnetic imbalances have been recorded. It is believed that a giant planet named Nibiru may be behind these incidents, which comes close to our solar system every 3,600 years, and during this time brings major changes in the climate and geology of the Earth. The discoveries of archaeologists Leonard Woolley and Max Mallowan confirm this flood. They told that during that period, incidents like sudden melting of ice, rising sea levels, and sinking of large land areas had occurred. Ice samples taken from Greenland and Antarctica also showed an increase in the amount of dust and radiation in the atmosphere around the same time. This is why stories like Great Deluge sound similar not only in Sumer, but also in the Bible and many other ancient civilizations. There has also been a religious aspect behind this. It has been told in many texts that there were differences between two groups of gods, Enlil and Enki, regarding humans. Enlil did not want a relationship between humans and the Anunnaki, godlike creatures, while Enki wanted to give knowledge and freedom to humans. When humans started becoming more powerful, it is said that Enlil decided to start everything again by bringing a flood. If we want to understand the beginning of human civilization, we have to start with the Sumerians. Around 4500 BC, these people settled in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia and created things that are still considered the foundation of our society. The Sumerians developed the first writing system, cuneiform, built complex irrigation systems, made laws, and built temples, ziggurats, that still testify to their progress. For the first time in history, we find the name of a writer, Enheduanna. Along with this, there is also a mention of a king like Gilgamesh, whose story is thousands of years old and even earlier than the Greek epics. But there is one thing that is often overlooked. The Sumerians have mentioned some mysterious creatures in their texts, which they called Anunnaki. These are not gods or goddesses, but real and living beings who have come to Earth, built cities, and brought profound changes to the lives of humans. Archaeologists have found evidence of the Sumerians' advanced culture and religious beliefs in excavations at sites such as Ur, Uruk, Eridu, and Nippur. In 1922, Sir Leonard Woolley excavated Ur and discovered a royal cemetery, where he found objects such as delicate jewelry, musical instruments, and the Standard of Ur, which show the depth of the civilization of the time. Despite such an ancient and advanced civilization, their accounts of the Anunnaki are still not given much importance by mainstream historians. It is a paradox worth pondering over: praise for technology and architecture, but disregard for their own historical claims. When we think of ancient civilizations, we usually think of the pyramids of Egypt or the city plans of Harappa. But Sumeria, in what is now Iraq, was a region where the level of human thought and technology was astonishing. The clay tablets found there, now preserved in major museums such as the British Museum and the Louvre, not only describe trade, law, and medicine, but also provide a wealth of information about the religious beliefs of the people. These inscriptions mention creatures called the Anunnaki, whom the Sumerians believed had descended from the sky and played a key role in the evolution of humanity. Some major texts, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Enuma Elish, tell of a time when humans and these divine beings lived together, similar to stories in the Bible and the Quran about the relationship between humans and gods in ancient times. Some researchers like Zecharia Sitchin have described these Anunnaki as creatures from extraterrestrials who may have modified human DNA. Although most scientists do not agree with this idea, scholars like Dr. Samuel Noah Kramer, who studies ancient texts, say that the Sumeri themselves believed that they received knowledge from above. His analysis shows that the Sumerian king and social system have been described as descended from heaven, which has been repeated again and again in every document of theirs. The strange thing is that when the things of the Sumerians are related to agriculture, trade, or law, then they are completely accepted. But as soon as they talk about the origin of humans or the role of Anunnaki, it is ignored by calling it a myth. This duality raises the question: if we can believe in their science and technology, then why not their history and beliefs? Modern DNA research, such as that of Dr. Robert Schoch and Dr. David Reich, shows that human history has not progressed in a straight line, but that there have been changes along the way that modern theories have not fully explained. Similarly, the site of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dated to about 9,600 BC, proves that the beginnings of civilization may have been much older and more complex than we thought, somewhat similar to the Sumerians. Clay tablets have played a major role in how we understand history today. But did you know that the earliest known examples of human writing were discovered in the late 1800s? In 1849, British explorer Austen Henry Layard and his team excavated an ancient site called Nineveh in Iraq. Although it was an Assyrian city, many of the tablets found there had Sumerian roots, particularly in areas like Nippur, Uruk, and Eridu. These tablets included documents that date back to around 2400 BCE and are considered the oldest written text in human history. The cuneiform script on these documents includes accounts of the creation of the universe, genealogies of gods and goddesses, human origin stories, and the flood, which dates back thousands of years before the Bible's Noah story. In these writings, deities called the Anunnaki appear repeatedly. These were not imaginary or invisible gods, but forces that directly intervened in human life. Texts such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, Atrahasis, and Enuma Elish provide a glimpse of how various gods met together to discuss the creation of humans and society, as if in a council. The idea of a father of all beginnings is a philosophical concept, but the creation of humans is said to have been a collective effort by many gods. The concept of Adam and Eve also appears in these Sumerian stories in a different way. Here, Adamu, the human being, and Tiamat, the mother of life, were created by the gods by mixing earth and their special essence, divine blood. This process sounds like a biological experiment, not just a miraculous order. And the Garden of Eden mentioned in the Bible was called by the Sumerians as Eden, not some imaginary paradise, but a very real place in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia. This was the place where the gods lived, farmed the land, and created humans to work in their stead. When records of ancient civilizations are found during excavations, they not only add to history, but also affect our way of thinking. Between 1889 and 1900, a team from the University of Pennsylvania in the U.S., led by John Panett Peters and John Henry Haynes, excavated a place called Nippur. A large number of clay tablets were found here, which contained hundreds of articles related to trade, religious songs, and mythology. Among these was a special tablet, the Nippur tablet, which is believed to be from around 2100 BC. It contains the Sumerian king list, which states that some kings ruled for thousands of years. This may sound strange, but similar references are also found in the Bible book Genesis, where it is told that people of ancient times lived for hundreds of years. The tablets also contain astronomy-related information, such as the Venus tablet of Amisaduqa, which details the motion of the planet Venus. This is quite advanced information for the period, especially considering the limited technology of the Bronze Age. These ancient texts have been studied and deciphered by scholars, such as Samuel Noah Kramer, Thorkild Jacobson, and Stephanie Daly, who have noted that many of the Sumerian stories have similarities to later versions in the Hebrew Bible, Greek mythology, and even some ideas in Hinduism. But when these writings mention creatures such as the Anunnaki, they are often dismissed as symbolic or mythical, while the tablets' economic calculations and medical treatment are taken seriously. The fact is that some words and ideas, such as the plural form of the word Elohim, used in the Hebrew Bible, suggests that God may have been originally thought of as a plural power rather than a single God. This is very similar to what the Sumerian Anunnaki referred to, a group, not just one God. All of this came to light at a time when Western society, with its religious texts and nascent archaeological thinking, had come to view human history in a linear way, a view that saw humanity as supreme, constantly evolving, and subject to one God. The complex and multi-layered religious interpretations of the Sumerian tablets did not find a place in the mainstream. If we look at ancient civilizations, it is clear that gold has always been considered something special. Excavations in Sumeria, especially those carried out by Leonard Woolley in the 1920s at the city of Ur, revealed many gold items, including crowns, jewelry, and ritual equipment. The quantity and quality of these finds suggest that gold was valued not just for decoration, but for some deep religious or cultural reason. Now, if we go back to those Sumerian texts, there is mention of gods called Anunnaki. These were not just gods and goddesses to be worshipped, but they are described as beings who came down from the sky to the earth. Especially in texts like Enuma Elish and Atrahasis, it is clearly written that the Anunnaki were an organized group whose leaders were Anu, god of the sky, Enlil, god of the wind, and Enki, god of water and knowledge. Some scholars believe that the Anunnaki were not simple religious figments, but were real forces that came to Earth and intervened directly. Author Zecharia Sitchin wrote a book in 1976, The 12th Planet, in which he argued that the Anunnaki came from a distant planet called Nibiru, which is part of our solar system and comes near Earth every 3,600 years. According to Sitchin's explanation, Nibiru had a serious environmental problem. The atmosphere was deteriorating. As a solution, the Anunnaki used gold, which was pulverized and spread into the atmosphere to create a protective layer. Interestingly, the reflective properties of gold are used in space technology today, such as the mirrors in the James Webb Space Telescope. Another word in Sumerian texts, Abzu, refers to the underground world and is associated with Enki. Some writings mention that the gods mined there. So it seems that extracting resources from the earth was also a purpose of the gods of that time. In this way, the story of the Anunnaki in the Sumerian writings does not seem to be purely a religious fantasy. It also contains some hints of practical and technological thinking. If we look at the evolution of humans, it is surprising that about 3 lakh years ago, Homo sapiens, i.e. modern humans, suddenly emerged and they developed things like language, art, and society very quickly. Scientists call it the Great Leap Forward. But the question still remains that how did this change happen so fast? Some researchers believe that there may be some external reason behind this. Now, if we look at the Sumerian texts, especially the text named Atrahasis, which is about 1700 BC, then an interesting incident is recorded in it. It is said that the gods named Anunnaki, who were working in gold mines on Earth, got very tired and started protesting against their leaders. Then Enki, the god of knowledge and water, suggested that humans should be created so that they could take over this hard work. The idea that this human, named Lulu, was created from clay and the essences of the gods, an idea that sounds today like biological experiments or genetic mixing. Many mainstream scholars, such as Thorkild Jacobsen, consider these stories symbolic and poetic. But some researchers argue that frequent words in these writings, such as blood of the gods, Abzu, and place names like Eridu, may indicate that they may be vague memories of a real event that was later given religious or cultural overtones. The debate took a new turn in 2016 when Caltech astronomers Konstantin Batygin and Michael Brown published research that found gravitational disturbances in the outer parts of the solar system that suggested there might be a large invisible planet out there. It was named Planet 9, and it may be located between 400 and 800 astronomical units away, and is said to be 10 times larger than Earth. The idea of Planet 9 is also puzzling because the planet Nibiru, mentioned in the Sumerian texts, is also a spinning, elongated planet that periodically comes near Earth. So the question arises, is this just a coincidence? Or does the story of the Anunnaki recorded in the Sumerian texts point to an old and now forgotten truth related to human evolution? If we talk about the oldest settlements in the world, the name of Eridu comes first. This city was in present-day Iraq and is considered to be the first city system of human civilization. Sumerian records show that this city was settled under the leadership of the god Enki, and it was not an ordinary place, but a center built with a complete plan from where mining, management, and other land-related work was conducted. When the famous archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley excavated Ur in the 1920s, he found some ancient writings in which it was told that the divine beings named Anunnaki had come to Earth about 4,45,000 years ago. The purpose of their coming was to collect a very precious metal, i.e., gold. It is said that they wanted to use this gold to fix the deteriorating environment of their planet Nibiru. The first settlement they settled to accomplish this big task was called Eridug, which means far home. This was later called Eridu. All management was done from here, and the work was done in the area to the south, the area with the most mineral wealth, called Abzu. In the early days, the Anunnaki did not do the work themselves. They hired another group called the Igigi for labor. These Igigi, who are described in the Sumerian texts as young gods, were responsible for heavy work such as mining, canal digging, and construction. But this work was so tiring that eventually even the Igigi rebelled. The Sumerian text Atrahasis records that about 300,000 years ago, the Igigi rebelled against the work. They burned their tools, surrounded Enlil's house in the city of Nippur, and complained openly. To solve this crisis, Enki made a new proposal: create a being that could take over their work. This was the moment when the creation of humans came up. According to Sumerian writings, it was made by mixing clay and the essence of the gods. This process is described as very serious and special. Scientific and archaeological discoveries today provide some very thought-provoking clues to human evolution. Ruins from the ancient city of Eridu in southern Iraq indicate that an advanced planned settlement existed there around 6000 BC. There is clear evidence of irrigation, construction skills, and organized labor, indicating that civilization may have begun even earlier than previously recorded. According to Sumerian texts, this was the site of an important experiment. Enki and a goddess named Ninhursag, or Mami, are said to have planned to create a new life. They mixed the essence, what some consider genetic material, of an Anunnaki with Earth's clay, and created a new creature called Lulu Amelu, or mixed worker. The magnetic field of the Earth is not always stable. Scientists have observed many times that its poles, i.e. north and south direction, keep changing from time to time. Such changes are called geomagnetic reversal or excursion. About 41,000 years ago, in an event called Lachamp excursion, the magnetic field of the Earth suddenly weakened, which had a serious effect on the climate and animals. In recent years, research on the activities of the Sun has also revealed that sometimes there are fierce explosions in the Sun, such as solar flares and coronal mass ejections, which can affect the weather and electronic systems of the Earth. We also get a glimpse of such dangers in stories thousands of years old. In the Sumerian text Atrahasis, it is told that an Anunnaki god Enlil troubled by the increasing population of humans and their rebellious thinking, decided to bring a big flood. His purpose was to wipe out the human race so that balance could be established on Earth again. But another god, Enki, who was soft on humans, warned a man named Atrahasis about the danger and asked him to build a large boat. A story very similar to the biblical story of Noah. What is remarkable about the flood is that not only the environment changed after the flood, but human thought and society also changed. Large temples, such as the ziggurat, began to be built in Mesopotamia, indicating that people wanted to regain the blessings of the gods. During this time, the foundations of some ancient laws and administrative systems were also laid, such as the law of Ur-Nammu, which tried to restore order and justice in society. In the end, this story is not just about the anger of the gods, but it also shows the efforts and fears of humans at that time. How natural disasters, astronomical events, and social upheaval combined to form a major historical story, the effects of which are still visible in our thinking and culture.